Now that the aims of socialism have been concisely explained in my previous essay, we should now gather our attention to explore the meaning of this aim and how it must be approached. As my critics have either been wondering my meaning or calling out hypocrisy when I say we must develop infrastructure, and then say that taxes constitute wealth extraction by infrastructure within the very same paragraph. The infrastructure enshrined and funded by taxes is held under the exclusive ownership of the state. I do not mean to say that we must favor government infrastructure in our aims to render welfare irrelevant, as government infrastructure constitutes welfare in itself. Our aim should be focused on taking direct action as individual agents to our cause, to develop our own infrastructure with the goal of seeing welfare programs to the death of their legitimacy, whilst abandoning the hope that the state has any interest in actually enriching its own people. The primary result of the welfare state is expressed in the continued supremacy of the state in its judgment to lead the people on a wild goose chase to end their poverty, and to guarantee itself electoral votes whilst maintaining the pretense of pursuing this aim. This structure is characterized by the state monopolizing the legitimate ownership over these programs for the systematic enslavement of the poor, indefinitely. If the welfare state were to successfully bring an end to poverty, then to what end would anyone pay taxes? War? For the state to successfully bring an end to poverty would be, in essence, the assurance of its own political suicide. That being so, the state employs the ruse that only it can end poverty to ensure that the poor would continue electing the welfare state into power indefinitely, fostering a reliance of the poor on the state. This state of affairs can only be described as the political enslavement of the masses who are languishing in poverty and will continue to languish in poverty only on different terms, so long as the supremacy of the welfare state remains intact. The ideal course of action for the anarchist should be to reject the ownership by the state over infrastructure, and to reject the idea that we would ever consent to supplanting our own action to develop such infrastructure with the supremacy of the welfare state by electoral vote, and to protest the very notion of the electoral vote as the limitation to the legitimacy of our action. The ability to bring people out of poverty rests within the people themselves. The conscious anarchist would instead seek to organize with his comrades into democratic unions to expend their direct action and see that they themselves successfully build the infrastructure necessary to see that the infrastructure of and by the state, that is welfare, becomes irrelevant, and to also see the organization of capital and wages to its irrelevance in turn. The ideal of direct action manifests itself in the form of a direct attack in spirit against the very logic that calls the establishment of the state and the market into existence and supremacy. To attack this logic is to attack the very foundations of these institutions without the firing of a single bullet, without the detonation of a single bomb. The first step for the anarchist to take is individual action to cultivate their own wealth, be it for food through gardening and agriculture, or clothes through independent weaving and stitching, or housing through the acquisition of land and independent construction. Our goal was never to discontinue labor, but to liberate labor and its fruits from capital and the state. The second step, having acquired the knowledge and skills necessary to put this work into action against the logic of capital and the state, is to find comrades of similar skills and to organize your collective labor to the spirit of solidarity and mutual aid, to invite more comrades and the forsaken to join your cause, and to put forth the surplus yields of your labor, for which you personally have no need, into the common good of those who have need, and into storage having satisfied all needs. As the conditions of collectivized labor improve, so too may your collective productivity, but it is up to you and your comrades to either call the sluggards to join wholeheartedly, or, as Kropotkin put it, to find other comrades who are willing to put up with their indifference. Do not be discouraged. As our critics insist that our ideals are impossible, we know it is possible, and it is up to us to prove it. Take heart, comrades. As we continue further to prove our ideals possible, the naysayers and those who doubt their own individual abilities of yesterday will tomorrow be inspired and wish to join. However, it may prove impossible to get any meaningful start without interacting with the market or the state to acquire the materials and resources we need to take our direct action. But might I suggest that this is merely the act of weaponizing the logic on which the market and the state rest against the spiritual fabric of the market and the state? Is this not our ideal revolution? To attack the constructs of the state and capitalism directly, using their own logic, without any violence enforced on a single sentient opponent? The only true difficulty I foresee is finding our comrades and joining together for this cause. The final step, having accomplished the other two to the fullest extent possible, is to challenge the institutions of the state and capital directly, to challenge their modi operandorum and their supremacy as a whole. Having successfully taken down their walls of doubt toward the abilities and the will of their fellow human beings, and having withered the foundation of their claims to legitimacy as the only institutions that bring peace and prosperity, a direct challenge by the people would be impossible for them to simply ignore. Having completed all these steps, the liberation of labor from capital and the state has finally been realized. As to the challenges that face you ahead, as you were before, as you have already been proceeding, as though you were free from the beginning. Upon surmounting the obstacles of the state and capitalism, the obstacles that lie ahead should prove to be of little difficulty in comparison. I believe in you, comrades. The only question is to the measure of your commitment.